I stand up and brush pine needles off the sleeve of my sweater. You translate his writing into other languages? He stares at me, then a chuckle erupts from somewhere deep in his wide chest. No, not that kind of interpreter. I'm a historic interpreter. I pose as Thoreau, wear the kind of clothes he would have worn, make appearances, and give talks. That kind of thing. People ask questions and I answer as Thoreau. It's fun. I narrow my eyes at his tall, muscular body, trying to imagine him in an outfit like Thoreau's. He doesn't look anything like the short, thin version of Thoreau I saw. Dreamed, hallucinated, whatever. But he seems like a nice guy, so I don't want to hurt his feelings. He takes a deep breath of morning air and looks out at the misty lake reflecting the sun. A morning walk is a blessing for the whole day, he says. I recognize the quote. Thoreau, of course. Only that day dawns to which we are awake, I quote back automatically, stifling a yawn. The man laughs. Clever, he says. Very clever. By the way, my name's Thomas. He extends a hand. I try to muster a decent grip inside his paw of a hand. I'm Hank. As soon as he takes my hand, Thomas yanks his back in surprise. Christ, Hank, your hands are like ice. For the first time, he notices that I'm shivering my ass off. He stares at me, trying to figure me out. You need a ride home, Hank? He asks. Home. No thanks. I stuff my hands into my pockets and stare at the ground. When I glance up again at Thomas's face, I see kindness. Well, at least let me help you get warmed up. I have hot coffee in a thermos and a couple bagels back at my vehicle. I'd be happy to share them with you. I squint into the morning sun behind his head and I say, sure, trying to sound casual, but I'm suddenly feeling so grateful that I have to swallow the lump in my throat. After crossing the street with Thomas, I spot Thoreau's cabin. The cabin isn't on the hill by Walden Pond where it belongs, but all the way over here, practically in the parking lot. Why is the cabin here? It doesn't belong here, I say, pissed. If I'd only known last night that it was here all along, so close. Thomas stands with his keys in one hand. It's a replica, he tells me. The actual cabin was moved and collapsed years ago, so they built this one from old photos and descriptions in Henry's book. A replica. I walk closer, peer in the window. Do you want to go in? Thomas smiles at me. I have the key. It's time to open for the tourists anyway. Yeah, I would. First, let me grab breakfast. He jabs a thumb toward a motorcycle parked about 20 feet in front of us, black and chrome, reflecting the morning sun. A historian with a Harley. If that historian was anybody else, it might seem strange, but somehow it fits Thomas. I watch as he saunters over to the bike in his black boots, opens a compartment in the back, and takes out a backpack. Inside the cabin, it's just the way I imagined it when I read the book, almost exactly the way it looked in my dream. A bed, a desk and table, painted green. 3 chairs, I say, unconsciously quoting Henry again. 1 for solitude, 2 for friendship, 3 for society. Thomas lifts his eyebrows. That's exactly right. He sets his walking stick in a corner and sits in the chair closest to the fireplace. He takes a thermos out of the backpack and pours steaming coffee into a plastic mug, which he offers to me. I cup my hands around its warmth. So they lock this place up at night, I ask casually, and sit on the edge of the bed. The mattress crackles under me, like it's filled with straw. The coffee is black and tastes bitter, but warms me from the inside out, so I don't mind. Of course, Concord's a nice town, but they can't leave it open. Thomas takes off his leather jacket and drapes it over the back of the chair. Some vagrant might show up and try to sleep here. I nod sympathetically. Yeah, some vagrant, like me. I imagine the windows, wondering how hard it might be to jimmy one open. I examine the windows, wondering how hard it might be to jimmy one open. Thomas hands me a buttered bagel in a plastic bag. I rip the bag open and eat too fast, realizing I haven't had food since yesterday afternoon on the train from New York. Hungry? Thomas takes a civilized bite into his own bagel and smiles. Growing boy, I say with my mouth full, but try to take smaller bites so I won't look like a total pig. Thomas pours me more coffee. Well, you look better now than you did when I first saw you this morning. He reaches over and picks up my copy of Walden from where I'd set it next to me on the bed and flips it to the back to the photograph of Thoreau with his pale-eyed, serious expression. You look like you fell out of the sky or something. Wiping my buttery fingers off on my jeans, I hope I don't look like too much of a slob. When I glance up at Thomas, he's not looking at the book anymore, but intently at me. So where did you come from, Hank? I shrug, feeling slightly buzzed from too much caffeine and too little sleep. I guess I fell out of the sky or something. Why not? It's as good an explanation as any, and even though Thomas has been kind to me, I decide not to tell him the truth. There are still so many questions I need to answer for myself first. I see you value your privacy, and I respect that, Thomas says, looking down at his hands. But come on, I have to ask. Why were you sleeping outside at the cabin site? Don't worry, you're not in trouble. I'm just curious. Well, I say reasonably, I wouldn't have been sleeping outside if the cabin had been there like it was supposed to be. Thomas smirks. Fair enough. I stand and nonchalantly try to open one of the windows like I just want some air, and all I manage to do is disturb a spider who scuttles to a corner of his web. The window is nailed shut. Figures. Outside, instead of a view of trees and bushes that should be there, there's a view of the parking lot and the road, where rush hour cars are whizzing by. Not the best location for a hideout. It's not right, I say half to myself. It doesn't belong here. I'm sure Henry would agree with you, says Thomas. He reaches up to scratch the back of his head. That's when I notice a design in black ink on his upper arm, showing under the left sleeve of his navy blue t-shirt. What's the tat? I ask. He pulls up his sleeve to show me the tattoo of a man's face in profile, a man with an old-fashioned black beard. Under it is written in fancy script lettering like a signature, Henry D. Thoreau. You know, I pause, uncertain how to say what I'm thinking. I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I don't act like a stodgy, Thoreau-loving historian/scholar who works for the Park Commission. Something like that. Yeah, I know. I get that all the time. He gets up, screws the top on his thermos, and gathers the remains of our breakfast. I'm heading into town. Want a ride? A ride on the Harley? Hell yeah. We ride out to the parking lot and walk to the motorcycle. For a kid who worships Thoreau enough to stay all night at his cabin site, you have a lot to learn, Thomas says, handing me a spare helmet from the back of his bike. Thoreau was a rabble-rouser in his time, a free spirit, a rebel. He pulls on his own helmet, straddles his bike, and flashes straight white teeth. Why do you think I like him so much? After Thomas drops me off in town, I aimlessly walk the streets of Concord with my hands stuffed deep into my pockets. I can't stop thinking about seeing Thoreau last night. Sure, it was probably just some freaky dream, but what if it wasn't a dream? What if Thoreau's ghost knows stuff about me and is watching over me like a guardian angel or something? Maybe that's why I woke up with the book next to me at the train station. Maybe it was a sign, a gift from Thoreau himself. Now that I've had some food to start my day, essential fact of life number 1, I decide to address number 2, clothing, at a sporting goods store on Main Street. I buy a warm coat, on sale half off, plus black sweatpants and a thick gray sweatshirt. I put the sweatpants and sweatshirt on in the dressing room and stuff the clothes Magpie gave me into the plastic bag. Now I've got 2 sets of clothes. Nothing fancy. Thoreau wouldn't approve of fancy, but enough to keep me warm. Next up, shelter. There's one hotel in town, the Colonial Inn, with a sign outside that says it was built in 1716. But I ask the price at the front desk, and it's way too expensive. My money, Simon's money, don't think about that, is dwindling. My shelter has to be safe and it has to be free, someplace where I can stay long enough to get my thoughts together, just until I remember more about my life and figure out what to do next. Somehow I wind up back at the Concord train station, and being there reminds me of meeting Haley. I think of her smiling green eyes, and I get this feeling like, hey, I'd really like to see her again. So I retrace the steps we walked yesterday to the high school. But as soon as I start up the long driveway to the school, I realize something is different. To start with, there are only a few cars in the parking lot. Plus, I don't see any kids outside, playing sports in the fields or sitting on the stone wall. It's a weekend or holiday or something. No school today. At first I'm disappointed, but then it occurs to me that I need shelter, and here's an entire building comprised of shelter and nobody around. If I can just get inside, there has to be some place in that big building where a guy could curl up and get some sleep. I try the front door, but it's locked, so I circle around to the back. Along the side of the building, a red minivan pulls up, and 2 girls, both with brown hair and pretty faces, pile out of the back seat. Do all the girls in Concord look like perfect little cheerleaders? One of them cuts a glance in my direction with interest but no recognition. They head to a side door, open it, and go inside. I wait a beat or 2 and follow them. Inside it smells like floor cleaners, sneakers, and pencils. I pass rows of lockers and follow the sounds of the girls talking and giggling, their voices echoing in the empty hallways. When they pass through some double doors, I peek through a small window in one of the doors into the high school auditorium. Rows of red seats face a stage where a group of people are working. Some are standing on ladders with electric drills and hammers. A couple of guys carry in boxes and set them on the side of the stage, and a few girls are painting sets off to one side with black paint. A tall guy with gray dreadlocks, probably the school janitor, pushes a humming vacuum cleaner up the side aisle. He's wearing jeans and a faded tie-dyed t-shirt. Then I see her, Haley, sitting on the edge of the stage, swinging her legs back and forth and talking to some guy. She's here. Now, instead of wearing her loose lacrosse uniform, she's wearing a tight red sweater and jeans. Her hair is down instead of up in a ponytail, and it's long, curling around her shoulders. Yeah, she looks hot. The guy she's talking to is really into her, gesturing his hands around a lot and talking. I can't tell if she's interested back. He's shorter than me and kind of scrawny, with shaggy brown hair and black jeans. His cap is on sideways, and there's a chain attached to his belt like he thinks he's some suburban punk gangster. Trying to decide whether I should go up and talk to Haley or just sit in the back of the auditorium, I open the door slowly and slip inside. The heavy door swings shut behind me. Boom! There is a loud cracking sound, and before I can even register what happened, a flash of scrambled images bursts inside my head. Metal reflecting twilight, colors, blue and red, fireworks bursting, a cry like an ice pick in my brain. I fall to the floor, curl up in a ball, hands over my ears. Whoa, buddy, what happened? Did you trip? I open my eyes, and a big guy with gray dreadlocks and intense blue eyes is staring down at me. After blinking hard for a few seconds, I can finally talk. Yeah, I guess so. Foggy, confused. There was this really loud noise.